Hey, this is Mark McNutt here. Happy calendar New Year. Happy after the solstice. This is the time what we usually associate with new beginnings. So here it is, January of 2022, and we're here. We're here together. I'm going to be talking about the aspects. I'm going to be particularly focusing on Mercury and Venus because they're both retrograde, and that usually is a very pertinent detail for most people and a thing that people like to know about. So, yeah, lot. Let's start at the beginning. Okay, we're at the calendar New Year after January 1st, and the thing about this time of year is we all get excited. It's Sun in Capricorn, Moon in Capricorn. Usually a good time, that is at the new moon. Usually a good time to make plans and start carrying them out and get your new calendar going and so forth. This year it's a little trickier because our vibe, our feeling would be about of course, just wanting to have the pandemic behind us, wanting to move forward, wanting to look forward to this year, and it's going to be an amazing year, but might be a little slow starter for a lot of people, perhaps most of us, because of the end of several planetary retrogrades. So what we're looking at is the new moon on January 2nd, and it's way past that right now. We're at January 7th when I'm posting this, and Uranus in trine with the sun and moon, which could bring a lot of surprising and amazing developments. So a lot of serendipity in store for us. Then we're seeing the full moon is going to be the first full moon of the year. It's going to be a super moon. It's going to be in Cancer right before the sun goes into Aquarius. And that's going to be a peak time. That's when we're going to actually feel like it's a new year because energy is going to start moving at that point. And then we also want to talk about Mercury and Venus, as I mentioned. So not so much on what every aspect is going on right now, but I just want to focus on those two retrogrades. And also, I might say that one reason I want to do that is there's a lot of diversity at this point. So I look at this and it's like your own individual chart at this time is going to give specific medicine for this time. And situations are going to be different for different people. So I always encourage the personal readings at least once a year, and get them for your friends too. If you have a friend that's going through a crossroads, because there's so many of those right now, and they have different meanings to different people. So that being said, let's talk about Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde. When planets retrograde, it means, as seen from the Earth, they appear to be moving backwards. Now, we're not on the sun. Astrology is geocentric, not heliocentric, so it doesn't matter that they spin around the sun. What matters is our perceptive reality is that we're seeing energy moving backwards. The planets that are retrograde right now, Mercury will be retrograde on January 10th till the end of the month, actually till Groundhog Day. Venus has been retrograde since the middle of last month and continues its retrograde until the end of the month. Same theme, right? And then Uranus is also retrograde to the middle of the month. So there's going to be a real turnaround in the month of January. Retrograde planets are a necessary part of the formula. They're like the inhale and the exhale. And they're like... as seen from the Earth, how it works is that it looks like two runners running around the track, and we see them moving at same speeds, but one appears to be on the inside track, one on the outside track, and it has the illusion of moving backwards. But for us, it's not an illusion because energetically, in terms of bioenergetic vibrations and the field and all that, magnetism and so forth, the planet is moving backwards when it seems to be, as seen from here. So everybody is interested in Mercury retrograde these days, and it's a great one to talk about. And that's why I'm going to start with Venus, because Venus retrograde is more rare and probably more important than a Mercury retrograde. Venus retrogrades every 2 years for about 48 days at a time. And what happens is Venus is the evening star and then slows down to a stop. And then there's a time period where Venus goes into the underworld. And when it emerges, it's the morning star. And this always happens during a retrograde of Venus. And these, as I mentioned, happen every 2 years. When people come to me and they ask for a reading, there's, certain kind of, they don't know what they want sometimes. And they say, well, I want to know about love, money, and success. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, oh, Venus, Venus, and Venus. Because Venus has to do with our self-esteem, our ability to project out in the world. Venus has to do with our own wealth and our sense of abundance within ourselves, bling and treating ourselves well, dressing up, jewelry, all that stuff. And Venus also has to do with, so that's money and success. Venus also has to do with love, of course, the planet of love. So when Venus is retrograde, unless you're born with Venus retrograde, when Venus is retrograde, it's a time to go in oneself. It's a time to exhale old relationships. It's a time to take the wealth of the connections that we have had and to dwell on that, to contemplate that, and to figure out, okay, what did I do well? What do I need to work on? What is my own what's my own responsibility in love? What's my own connection? And by love, we don't just mean, the person that you sleep with or date or something. What we mean is how do we love, and Venus, when it's direct, meaning moving forward, it's about the day-to-day connections of making relationships with others, making relationships with ourselves. But at the core of our being is this sense of self-worth around that. You can't really project fulfillment with another person unless you've worked on yourself. And that's what Venus retrograde is about. It's about like exhaling our old relationships so we can catch up with the present. There's a false statement in the American jargon about growing the economy and growing this and growing that and expanding and money markets and all this other stuff. But when Venus is retrograde, it's not about that sort of thing. It's about integrating the past experience. So this is, many of us are hunkered down right now with the pandemic, and probably one of the best pieces of news I can tell you is that's a great thing to do with Venus retrograde. Venus retrograde is, there isn't this FOMO, fear of missing out, about, you're not doing this or that magnanimous thing out in public with a lot of, 300 of your best friends. A lot of us are at home. A lot of us are riding through this. A lot of us actually have gotten infected. So we share this common reality. And Venus retrograde is really good for going into the depths and then finding renewal. So before you go deep, you can't go far. And before you go deep with another person, you have to go deep in yourself. So there's a purging quality of Venus retrograde. Those of us who are in Venusian callings, which is massage therapists, body workers, people that sell jewelry, clothes, dress-ups, people that want to look good for in public, people who are dealing with relationships on any level. Venus can be a very challenging time for that. However, it's really, really powerful for doing the deep work within ourselves, or dyading with another person, or getting to the bottom of things. Venus is retrograde, really, really good for healing old relationships. So Venus is in Capricorn. It's starting its retrograde in Capricorn. It got up to Venus conjunct Pluto last month, which is a transformational time in the middle to late December. And now Venus is retrograding back, still in Capricorn. And that Venus is also Well, it remains in Capricorn. Venus in Capricorn is usually very pragmatic. In normal years, and there is no normal years, but when Venus is direct forward, this is a good, particularly in Capricorn, good time to start your business, to project the new thing, to schmooze with everybody, to send your mail outs, to promote and all that. Venus retrograde, it's a little bit like paddling upstream that way. I want to mention over and over, if you're born with Venus retrograde is a really powerful positive aspect. Same with Mercury retrograde. So this month, Venus is retrograde until the end of the month, still in Capricorn, and then it turns around and catches up to where it was in December, in mid-December, right around the end of February. And so there's a long time period of renewal, and it's good. It corresponds with the winter months and with the time that we're hunkering down anyway. And there's kind of a chicken and egg thing with the pandemic and the effects thereof, because when Omicron came in big, was the same time that Venus conjuncted Pluto and moved into its retrograde. This pandemic started when 4 other planets conjuncted Pluto in the beginning of 2020, I mean. So that's Venus. And it's a time when people don't want to spend money, when they feel poor or so like that. But of course, there's going to be a lot of kind of wanting to feel good, So people are going to be buying more chocolate, or they're going to be, trying to find ways to connect and all that. But I recommend don't try too hard on the outer realm. Go to the inner realm. Venus in Capricorn is really good for creating structure and renewing structure. But sometimes you have to, knock down the walls in order to remodel. So this is a really good time to go into yourself. And we have a mantra for this, which once you're done listening to this, try this, which is you take a deep breath and you say, I love myself unconditionally. And no faster than that. And then you take 3 deep breaths while you contemplate that. And then you do it again. I love myself unconditionally. 3 more breaths, do it again. I love myself unconditionally. And you do this 12 times. And I know for me, about time number 6 or 7, I start to feel really uncomfortable and want to get on with it, because I'm like, yep, check the box. I love myself unconditionally. But then I realize by the repetition that going in deeper, I find the places where I doubt that I love myself unconditionally or someone else. And all of our relations are a projection of self-love. So this is a good contemplation. Do it 12 times. Do it every day. And you will have great insights about your own lives. So that's that. Mercury is also retrograde. So Mercury's not retrograde yet. Mercury is retrograde from January 10th until Groundhog Day, February 2nd, which is also the next new moon in Aquarius. So Mercury is in Capricorn as well. And Mercury in Capricorn usually is about structuring plans, making lists, again, connecting with people, not as much socially as making the connections for business or for, hooking up your life. Mercury retrograde is a natural cycle that occurs 3 times a year for 23 days at a shot. And, many people are like, oh no, Mercury's going retrograde. And then the second it allegedly comes out of retrograde, then they're like, yeah, got to get down to it. But there's a shadow time with all these planets. So basically, Mercury retrograde occurs for, let's say, a week or 2 before it starts retrograding. And the shadow energy of that goes on until Mercury catches up with where it was before it went retrograde. Same with Venus. And it's usually more like 35 days or something like that. So we get into early February before Mercury catches up with where it was. And when it does, boom, conjunct Pluto. Again, both Mercury and Venus retrogrades at the same point in the same degree, 25 degrees Capricorn, and Mercury conjunct Pluto in the transits. This is about big transformational change in the way that we structure our thinking and our communications. Pluto retrograde Venus retrograde conjunct Pluto is about transforming the nature of love, caring, and relationships. So what an opportunity we have, especially since this isn't the middle of high summer for most of you, unless you're listening in the southern hemisphere. And this is a time when there's natural indwelling. So don't work too hard on the trying to, hook up with everybody, trying to fast forward the end of the pandemic. The pandemic may be with us for a while, and things are not going to be the same afterwards. We're creating a whole new world, and that's probably one of the explanations of Uranus in trine with the sun and moon this month. And Uranus is also coming out of a retrograde. So it's like there's transformation and new opportunities are in the air, but they're not. This isn't the optimum time to act on it, unless you're born with Mercury retrograde. Those of us who are born with Mercury retrograde, which is 20% of us, we tend to be very mentally focused when Mercury is retrograde. Probably a lot of my ums and a lot of my, stuttering and things like that. I had to learn to speak, to speak in front of people. This is not natural for me. It's natural to write but not speak. And that's because I have Mercury retrograde. So some of us, when Mercury goes retrograde, boom, the mind gets totally focused. But the other 80% of us, we challenges such as our cell phones not working or the electricity going down or can't find the cell tower or, a lot of electric and electronic complications are triggered by Mercury retrograde. And in fact, sunspots and other things like that can actually really mess up your electronics. So anything where there's a shift in the subtle magnetism will affect electronics. And so Mercury retrograde is a time when there's a definite shift going on, a definite counterpoint going on. And Mercury is also in Capricorn as of a few days ago. And so Mercury in Capricorn is about making plans, but these plans are likely to change. So it's like, if you want God to laugh, tell her your plans. This is that would be Mercury retrograde. Mercury moves into Aquarius, and I said it was in Capricorn right now, but no, it's in Aquarius. And then it starts the retrograde in Aquarius, and then goes back into Capricorn to that 25-degree Pluto conjunction right at the next new moon. And that's the time to launch the new thing, whatever the new thing is. So we're at an incubation period, all of us. Good time to look at our past, good time to catch up with the present by way of, bookkeeping our life story. In other words, instead of like working with the finances, I'm talking about working with your own integrity, your own development during this time of Mercury retrograde. Really great time for intuition, not so great for focusing the mind in a very linear, rational manner. So Mercury retrograde annihilates rationality. And of course, I am one, so I love that moment. Anyway, that's Mercury retrograde. That occurs from the 10th, when Mercury is in Aquarius, zips back into Capricorn right around the full moon, and then turns around on Groundhog Day. At this full moon is a supermoon. It's a powerful time. And around the 17th or so, and many things happen during that time. Uranus comes out of retrograde. Uranus, the unusual, unexpected, a higher octave of Mercury. And so it's going to start moving forward, which means weird and unusual opportunities are going to come out of the blue, and we can start acting on them at that point. So usually I'm like new moon to new moon, but this full moon is going to be the power time. So full moon of this month, around the 17th or so to February 1st, and the few days after is just going to be we're going to feel a powerful wave that will affect us in ways that we have not expected. And the point of doing all this work on yourself and the internalization is to be clear, so that when the changes happen and when that tidal wave happens, you can just jump on that proverbial surfboard and ride it to your dreams, which stay tuned, because that's the next few months with Jupiter moving back into Pisces, Neptune being in Pisces, all this Capricorn stuff shifting to Aquarius, except Pluto. So the opportunities are going to be there. But the more that you're clear, the more that you empty yourself out, empty your vessel so it can be filled. So that's my advice to you at this time. I'm also quite willing to, if anybody contacts me, I'm willing to tell you if you have Mercury or Venus retrograde free of charge. But also telling you, if you have a chart, to look at that, and if it has the RX next to it, that's retrograde. Interestingly, the retrograde symbol, the Rexall symbol, or all that has to do with medicine, comes from retrograde, comes from the astrological. We had it first. And that's, the retrograde is the remedy. So that's our way of coming to a new point, and then we start to see Venus and Mercury rising before the sun, and that's going to be our omen for the future. So if you want a reading, contact me. I'd love to have more subscribers on our Arius News channel. And tell your friends, pass it on. This is a good time to do generous acts of kindness for your friends that you love in a Venusian or Mercutial manner. So yeah, let's stay in touch, and we'll integrate in, and then we'll be able to project it out. And don't forget to love yourself unconditionally.